one of the really, I think, great historic events in sports car racing is the 6 hours. Obviously, it started back in the 60s and 70s, and now is in certainly a sense of, I think, a big revival over the last few years, and it's looking even better for the future. But let's start off with what happened in the race itself. First of all, an amazing battle at the front. We had some weather issues, we had lightning issues, a red flag, a slight change in the time that affected some fuel strategies, but in the end, Acura on Acura at the front, and it was phenomenal.
It was immense, and I think when you look at this 6 hour event, it's the shortest of the four Enduros on the WeatherTech Championship schedule. But I think the teams and the drivers look at this as almost like a sprint race, and track position was so important all day long. You saw that on the opening lap with Albuquerque making that bold move around Blomqvist into the inner loop, and then it was almost cut and paste, but even bolder to get that move done for the end of the race. And one thing that I could not get my head around all day long was from the second hour on, the 10 car elected not to pit under a yellow, went very much off strategy. I couldn't see how it was working out. Initially, I thought they were back timing the 3 hour mark where you got bonus points for the Michelin Endurance Cup. That wasn't the case. Spoke to Wayne Taylor yesterday, and he said essentially they were so concerned about track position, they felt if they pitted, that the Ganassi cars would have split their forces there, and then they would have had a car in front of them. So they elected to do that. And quite honestly, they got a little bit lucky with that red flag and how the timing of that worked out right at the end, even though they had to go into full fuel save to get Philippe to the checkered flag.
But as they got that last restart and everything, they were running a little bit lighter fuel load, weren't they? So the car a little bit more responsive. That run, Albuquerque got up through the S's, and that outside pass into the inner loop, boy, I mean, with just that much room for him to be able to make it work. And I think they even grazed going by. It was a spectacular move. And you can tell, obviously, that the MSR team, the Meyer Shank Racing team, they were gutted because they really, up until that point, kind of controlled things.
They did. I mean, they've really been on form this year. I mean, from this point last year, they started 2021 on the back foot with the Acura chassis. Couldn't find the sweet spot with the car, and certainly Dane Cameron of the player at the time struggled. He got to Watkins Glen last year, and they were in the mix. They should have won this race last year. And then you get to the end of the race, and they finish second again for the fourth race in a row, and with it lose the championship lead, albeit by a mere 17 points, which is nothing now with the tenfold points that we get from what we had a couple of years back. But I think you're spot on there with the lighter weight car. I mean, these cars are so super critical to weight. So the fact that he was running much lighter weight, probably 20, 30 kilos lighter on fuel there, and the fact they ran a little bit less wing gave him that slipstream, and he made that shot. But the way he did it, Greg, that's what amazed me in retrospect. He didn't just go out wide and chop across. He leaned on him into that corner. It was just brilliantly done. Just the perfect move at the perfect time. And Blomqvist, once again, was frustrated at the end of the day.
A lot of news coming out of Watkins Glen about the LMDH, the new GTP category, particularly with Porsche. They named their factory drivers, not necessarily who's going to be where, but who they'll be. But the other thing is Porsche is the first to say, we've got a full-on factory or a customer program that we'll be supporting with factory knowledge and input and tech. And they named their team as well.
Yeah, JDC Miller Motorsports, what a coup for that group. I mean, it's a big number, right, Greg? $2.9 million, which even in today's money is a lot more than you had to give up to get the RS Spider going back a few years ago. But with that, it's full technical support. It's all singing and dancing. But I think what I really like about the fact with the Penske organization, with the WEC program and an IMSA program, with the input from Porsche, of course, they went out and signed Dane Cameron, Felipe Nasr, champions in our sport, of course, at the highest level. But they've dug into their GT ranks. I think it's so exciting, like the FAF Motorsport duo of Campbell and Jaminet are going to be running this weekend with the lead in GTD Pro. They're in those LMDH cars next year. You got Lauder, Vantoy, you got Estra, Christensen. So it's really a stellar group. It's very exciting times. And as we've seen in recent weeks, all of these big manufacturers have now revealed their true identity in terms of the design for the cars. They're super sexy, and I can't wait for the Rolex 24 next year.
Let's touch real quick on Formula One. Interesting developments that we're seeing unfold there. First of all, to me, one of the huge stories this year is next year, 3 Formula One races in the United States. I mean, it's really experiencing a significant rebirth here in terms of popularity.
It really has, Greg. And for a while there, you couldn't really get it on the radar. And now I think a lot of people lead to Drive to Survive with the Netflix series there to get new eyeballs on it. And it's just taken off. I mean, Miami was sold out like in a week. You were obviously on site for that one. We've got Vegas coming on board next year. So there's just huge momentum there now. And times are really great for that championship. And what a spectacular year we're having this year.
What do you think is the reason that George Russell has been most of the races this year able to run in front and sometimes comfortably so of Lewis? I've jokingly, but I'm half jokingly said maybe he just doesn't know better because he hasn't had the experience of what a Mercedes, when it's been right the last number of years, feels like. So he's just able to pick that car up by the scruff and just hustle it. Lewis maybe trying to finesse it a little bit more to really dial it in.
It's hard to say. I mean, certainly George has done a tremendous job. He's finished in the top five in every single race with a car that's not been performing that great. So he's got the job done. I think from Lewis, and I'm a big Lewis fan, but I'm not just defending him here. He hasn't had the rub of the draw really in terms of safety cars, and I think George has really just found that gap behind the leaders and in front of the chasing pack. And that's where he's been qualifying, and he's kind of find that sweet spot where he kind of runs a lonely race, but he gets the job done. And Lewis has always found himself mired in the pack. He got behind Alonso, if you recall, at Monaco. He decided he's going to run around the track at 7, 8 seconds off the pace in some crazy scenarios. But as we saw last weekend, I'd say that was more true to form. I think George is certainly a phenomenal talent. He's going to give Lewis a run for his money, even if they had the best car on the racetrack. But I think it's just gone his way. I mean, Toto Wolff has defended Lewis a little bit with that. He said, we've been trying different setups with Lewis. He's been willing to go more out on a limb, but more extreme with the setups. And it just hasn't really gone his way. But it doesn't take much in this sport to turn things around. And I know Lewis will be on full bore and full charge, hammer time, as they call it, this weekend.
We have, I think, one of the most amazing feel-good stories that comes back out of what unfolded at Watkins Glen, and that is the first win. And for somebody who we have watched, I watched him first in Formula BMW up at Mosport, now Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. You could see he was special. I know you saw what he could do in DTM when you were working with Joey over there. Just an amazing story coming out of the Michelin Pilot Challenge. Robert Wickens back in victory circle, I think for the first time since 2017. I mean, just an amazing recovery and fight back for that young man who's immensely talented.
Oh, it was just great to see and to call the race and to see he and Mark Wilkins, a fellow Canadian, of course. Those two guys used to run go-karts together up in Canada to get that first victory. Robert's all in. I mean, he's got such determination to come back from his massive injuries from Pocono back in 2018 with that horrendous IndyCar crash there, to just keep fighting and just putting, 1 foot forward, literally, but with a struggle, right? It's such an amazing task what he's done here to be able to drive one of these cars. But he's not done. I mean, I saw Robbie and had a really good chat with him in Long Beach when he was there with the Arrow IndyCar team. And he said, I want more. This is great, but he said, I want more. So the first box to tick was to get that win. And what a time to do it, as they now go north of the border and can celebrate this weekend on their home turf. But look for Robert Wickens to be in machinery even faster, at a higher profile level, maybe GT3 machinery, maybe even a prototype. I mean, the technology is there, Greg, and he's proven that he can get the job done there. I mean, he's not running up against guys who aren't quick. I mean, that championship is really fierce, as we know, in the Michelin Pilot Challenge, and he's getting the job done. So great to see, wonderful story, and I don't think it's the first time we'll see them in victory lane this year.